That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted either. There we go. Hello everyone. Welcome to Shino's Arsenal. We are going over the player ratings for Arsenal's 1-0 win in the third round of the Carabao Cup. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel while I get my stuff together. Where to begin? Gruesome stuff out there, guys. Really, if you guys were a part of the watch along, you guys will know that I did not enjoy that at all. I thought, you know, I wanted to see Arsenal win a game with a rotated lineup pretty comfortably and look like they have the energy to play in this competition. And I saw exactly what I saw last season. We either struggle very, very much so to get it over the line with a rotated lineup, or we go out. And so, as happy as I am to go through, I still have the same feelings that I did last season, that we just have the inability to get up for cup competitions with a rotated lineup. That team was more than good enough to beat Brentford easily. In the first half, we had enough chances. Emil Smith-Rowe had a chance, Eddie Nketiah had a chance, Kai Havertz had a chance to just put us 2 or 3 goals ahead so that we didn't have to eventually need to bring on the likes of Odegaard and Jesus and Zinchenko. But of course, we score our 1 goal, we sit off, we don't put them under any more pressure. They start to gain more control and start pushing, getting chances. Their crowd gets up for it, and we're on the ropes for about 30 minutes in that half. Then our starters and our regular players come on, and they just look not like themselves. It's exactly the way it looked last season. And it's really disappointing because good teams, I think, win these games relatively easily, even with rotated lineups. Like Tomiyasu is a starting level player. Gabrielle is fine. Ben White starts for us. We know Ramsdale is the number one. You have Jorginho with so much experience. You have Kai Havertz, who's been starting for Arsenal, by the way. You have Emil Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson, who haven't had a lot of minutes, but they've played in competitions like this before for Arsenal. Out of the academy they have, and have scored goals and looked really, really good. So the idea that it should have been this level of a struggle for me still lies within management and mentality when it comes into these cups. If we don't play our starting 11 and start well from the beginning, we really struggle, and it really takes the other team to absolutely let us off the hook, or for them to just kind of like take over. And man of the match, I'm just going to spoil it for you guys. Like, it's Wissa. Wissa is the man of the match today, because him missing a couple of chances was the difference between us winning the game and potentially having to go into penalties. And no, I was not confident going into penalties. So I am happy that we get to the next round, but we are not getting any better at winning these games relatively comfortably with a rotated lineup. And that is shocking, because we have, like, these are not El Neni and Cedric didn't come on until later. We're talking Kivior, we're talking Tomiyasu, we're talking Jorginho. Like, some of these players were brought in just for these competitions to give us the depth and quality that we need. And again, we're struggling very badly to just get it over the line. And so, to me, I'm worried going into the weekend. That's the second bad performance in a row from Arsenal, where we played relatively well in the first half and then just completely fall off of a cliff in the second half. And it's worrying, because some of the people that played today will need to play against Bournemouth, because we have so many injuries right now. And right now, for me, they're not stepping up enough. They're not stepping up enough. Like, they're not going to be able to get us over the line in these difficult circumstances. So it's management, it's mentality. People just need to start taking these cups seriously and taking their chances. And if we don't play our starting 11 right now, we are in the same position that we were last season. No starting 11. We are struggling badly, 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 badly. So it's rough. It really is. We're going to get into the player ratings, but it was stinky. It smelled. It reeked. It was just the worst. And the first half, I just kept saying I didn't care. We were 1-0 up. I didn't care, because I knew that it was going to be a struggle in the second half, and it was going to really just take either Brentford being terrible or for us to get lucky. And I do want to say this, that I do think when we're on the ropes, there's no better goalkeeper for us than Ramsdale. And he played well as we got further into the half and Brentford started to put more and more pressure on us. That is when he shines. He shines when we are on the ropes. He really does. And so he did a good job today. I also want to say, like, I thought Tomiyasu was quite good today. So even though I was like, he's a squad option, he needs to step up. I actually think he was really good today. I thought him and Gabriel were pretty fine. I thought Kivior struggled for the majority. I know he had that goal line clearance, but man was struggling back there so badly. And White, who's a player that I desperately did not want to see play today, looks a shadow of himself at this stage. Like he was poor-ish against Spurs and he looked really poor again today. So I'm not quite sure what the answer is there. Because again, we don't have many options. But going into Bournemouth after watching this and watching Spurs, I'm worried, because we're not clinical, we're not creating enough chances, we're not fluid. And we just don't look like ourselves. But we look like ourselves in the cup competitions today. So there you go. There's 163 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. There's tons of comments in here, so I know, let's see what you guys are saying. Monk says, so frustrating to watch these players move like that. Boy says, I reckon if we started our full first team, we get the exact same performance. I don't think we do. Tawana says Nelson 6, Gabrielle 6, Ramsdale 6, Kiwi 5.5, Eddie 0. We're gonna get into the actual player ratings, but I hear you. Sammy says really bad second half. Yes, really poor second half. Shaquille says Tomiyasu, all the fans need to hold that. He is our best defender at defending. And Tomiyasu, like Trossard for me, are high quality squad options to have in the team. They have enough experience and enough know-how and enough quality where you don't see that much drop off between them and the next player. Like I thought Tomiyasu had a very good game. I really do. And it's good to have him in the team because he's a good kind of tool to have because he can do so many different things. He can play on the left, he can play on the right. He's pretty good on the ball. But what he does have is the ability to defend really well 1v1. And Ben is struggling right now to defend in wide areas and to defend 1v1. He looks tired and he's getting targeted at this stage. And I do think that going into Bournemouth, I think we should sit Ben down and play Tomiyasu on the right. There's not Saka's not even over there, so we don't even have to worry about breaking up the Saka side. He's not going to play. So, I think Tomiyasu stops you from being targeted 1v1 in wide areas. So I would like to see Tomiyasu play. I think he more than earned it today, playing on the right-hand side next to Gabriel. And, Ben just needs some time to sit, I think, for sure. Earl says, this was a good Arsenal performance. Well done, lads. Fair enough. Saturdays equals you says, I only caught the last 15 minutes. Curious to hear about the performance. And the thing is I think we should be beyond this stage of who we are as a team where a couple of guys out, not even a couple, but we rotate and we just look like a shell of ourselves and we can't perform at a decent level. I think we should kind of be beyond that at this stage. Like the only thing that really saved us is the fact that we're a pretty good defensive side. And you have guys back there like Gabrielle and Tomiyasu getting back there and making the blocks. There were some good blocks, by Ben and Kivior as well and Ramsdale. The fact that we have good defenders back there saved us, but we still could have went down if Brentford had just put a couple of those chances away. So yeah, it was stinky. It really was. John P says Reece looked good going both ways. Smith Rowe can only play 40 minutes, then he is dead. But what else do you expect from Emile Smith Rowe? He hasn't played at all. Like I expected him to be kind of like dead on his feet in the second half because this is the first start he's had in a very long time. So, I don't really blame him at all. And I think Reece had a really good showing as well. But, in the first half, the game should have been done. How many times are we going to say that? Game should be done in the first half. It's wild. Crispy says, I need Bournemouth thrashing or else it's looking dodgy. Eloise says, the only thing we need to know, what is the role of Havertz in this team? He was okay in the first half, really fell away in the second. I don't know what to make of it. It's curious case. Curious case. So there you go. Tane says ESR still had a crisp passing in the second half. Mikey says City 2-1, really. So did they knock Newcastle out? Did they persevere? That's crazy if they did, but they're the best team on the planet. So there you go. John P says Ramsdale was braver with his passes today. He was. He had one little bobbly moment where he kind of held on to it a little bit too long, but there you go. Tawana says that midfield needs something. I don't know, but it needs something. Maybe it needs like a number 8 in it. I think for Jorginho on an island is always going to be pretty difficult. I think he needs to be in a double pivot. But you have him by himself, and then you have two players that like to be off the ball a little bit more than being on it, and Emile Smith-Rowe and Havertz. So you don't have a high volume passer in there. You don't have enough. You don't have a ball winner in there. You just don't have enough. And so the midfield was always kind of going to be an issue at some stage in this game, I think. But, I can't wait to see like Rice come back in for sure. Also, oh no, people are saying Man City are losing. Damn. I'm so hungry. Social Joint says no Chelsea player. That's what it needs. So yeah. Let's go ahead and jump into this as well. There's 225 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. The game's not over yet though. Like, is it over or no? I'm just gonna click it on real quick because it would be fun to see sad Manchester City faces. Is this what life without Rodri is? Is that what it is? No, I'm just joking. See, mine is like way behind and it says Newcastle 1, Manchester City 0. Is that what it's always been this whole time? It's over? Yeah, damn, they did not come out. You guys said, so who did Manchester City have out there? See, I'm sorry. Like now I'm getting like sidetracked. Who do they have out there? Dang. City are out. Almiron, Lascelles. Isak must have scored the winning goal because they're showing him. Pep is trying to act okay with it. Oh, he's over there talking to Bruno Guimaraes. She's telling him, we're going to trigger your release clause. Don't worry. He's so unslick. He wants to tap up every single decent midfielder in this damn league. Can't stand him. Doku is out there. That's a big win for Newcastle. Like, no, I'm not even going to shade. Like, that is a big one for Newcastle. So, good for them. So that means Brighton are out and Manchester City are out. We're still in. Man United are in. Newcastle are in. I'm sure West Ham are still in, right? Liverpool as well. Big day for them. Good for them. Big day for them. So I'm starving, you guys. But let's do this. Let's get in here. Let's get in here. Does that count as them not going invincible? So yeah, Ramsdale. Here's the thing. It's like I said, I really do think he's the type of player that thrives when we're under pressure. And we were under pressure today. And so he was, I thought, a lot better, especially like in the second half. He was more adventurous with his passing. Some of that was scary, but some of it was also just me panicking. He had one little moment where I almost got the ball taken off of him, but for the most part, saves wise, distribution wise, he was okay. And so I'm going to give Ramsdale, I'm going to give him a little bit higher than that. I'm going to give him a 7. Clean sheet as well. This is his area of expertise. When the team is right back on top of him and he needs to make a couple of saves, he usually makes them. So I'm happy for him. And so let's see who plays at the weekend. I think it'll be Raya, but Ramsdale did well. Saturdays equals you says Pep would love a quadruple. Nashville says I'm gonna miss Ramsdale so much. Charlie says Ramsdale is never getting that number 1 back, guys. He can't keep the back line calm. James says Ramsdale was good, a solid 8. Lucas says 4 in the first half, 8 in the second. So you want to do... A lot of people keep calling me. I'm sorry. I don't know why. So like I was telling you guys in the watch along, I don't know why this auto shop keeps effing calling me, but like I already said I'm going to come at 3:30. Can you leave me alone and stop calling? Jesus. Yeah, so about in between that is like what, like a 6.5, basically, if you go between 8 and 4. Tane says Rams beat his passing, 8 beat his passing has looked all season, so the best his passing has looked. Yes. Steve says, come on, you Gunners. Mamang says, hard to watch, but I'll take it. So yeah, about a 7 I would give him. I think good game overall for him. That he did have some moments where, like we could be having a different conversation, but I'm willing to give him the 7 because I mean, we did get the clean sheet, I did see some other things too. Like there was one where he was scrambling badly, but it's okay. Hadamare, looks dead on his feet, needs probably some time off. I think what probably will scare Arteta from doing it is the one time that we did decide to give Ben White a maybe an uninjury forced rest. Tomiyasu made that big mistake against Manchester City. It was like the one time where we decided to rotate or change something, and it wasn't really like we didn't have to do it, but we did it. And Tomiyasu made that mistake, and so I think Tommy needs to gain some more trust back, maybe with the manager. But it's time. Tomiyasu needs to play against Bournemouth and maybe even against Manchester City against Doku. It's just that serious, like it's not even like good wingers anymore getting by him really easily. It's like fullbacks. Like Hickey was getting by him pretty easily. He's dangling legs out. I don't know if he's just dead on his feet. He's played a lot of minutes. He's somebody that is up and down the sideline constantly. Like he's always gets back, go up, try to support Saka, heavily involved in everything. And I'm just wondering if he needs a little bit of a rest. And so I would do it against Bournemouth. And then maybe even against Manchester City as well, because as good as Ben is, like he's going to get cooked by Doku, and we all know it. And we need our best 1v1 defender, and it'd be nice to ease Tommy into it. That being said, I would probably for this game give Ben. I feel like I'm being generous. Like even a 5 feels nice. Really, I thought he was really poor. But that then again, like it just was that. Like he was really poor. I have to give him like a 4. It was really, really bad. And it just confirmed my fears. Like he needs to come out. Like we need to do the right thing. Let him sit, please. Because there's going to be a lot of players that get low ratings. So I want to make sure I set the tone correctly. If everybody he was one of our worst, so he's going to get a 4, even though it feels harsh. It was bad. It was bad. But I do think that he looks tired to me, and continuously playing players when they're out of form or looking tired doesn't work. Please sit. Please sit. Like let him sit down. Monk says 3. Iman says 4 for White. Tawana says a 4. Shake says 4. Tawana says he wasn't it. I love that. Charlie says 4 out of 10 for Ben White. Needs a break, 2 or 3 games. I agree. Hugo says 4. Michael says 4 from White. Dat says need a defibrillator. John P says Ben White kept refusing to pass to the young winger. He needs to just come out. Monk says 3. He looks so lost at the moment on skates. He's like Pep would be so happy to put Doku on Ben White, and we know he's going to be a really tricky opponent. And I'm just thinking like early, you want to get Saliba comfortable next to Tommy. And so just do it against Bournemouth. Ben White is done right now. Like he just needs to sit for a little bit. Especially if you want Ben to be good for like, when things get even more difficult, like later down, you don't want him to get an injury now and then him be out for a long period of time. So just do it now. Yeah, and this is really the thing that stands out in my mind is that Timber injury really killed us, because if you could go into a Manchester City game with Saliba, Gabriel, Tommy on one side, Timber on the other, not only do you have some good defense, but you could actually like you could stop Manchester City, I think, a lot better with that back 4. You have some flexibility. I think right now we don't have enough flexibility at the back. And so it's a little worrying. Charlie says our issues are created by Arteta forcing Havertz down our throat. It was more than Havertz bad today, but he was definitely he stood out. He stood out. He stood out. But here's the thing also, like, when people are like, "Oh, our fullbacks don't offer enough offensively." The reason why they don't offer anything offensively is because we played with 2 number 10s, and so your number 10s need to pretty much have, like, free-ish roles to kind of, like, be free and, like, do their thing. Our fullbacks, like, back in the day, you'd have like a double pivot or something like that. You'd only have one number 10. You have like maybe one fullback that's like really marauding and get forward. We kind of are a little bit more um, pragmatic with our fullbacks, but that does allow our number 10s to be more creative. The thing is like we're not getting enough from our midfield, not enough production, not enough incision, not enough oomph. Like really, it's just Odegaard, and if Odegaard is off it, we don't get anything else. So really we need more from our midfield. If your fullbacks are more pragmatic, you need to get more from your mids. And right now, it's just not enough. Like we're not. I mean, I think Odegaard is even just a little bit off of his game anyway. They're also doing a lot to like stop our right hand side, so they're putting a lot of people on Odegaard and Saka anyway. And so the left hand side is not only open, but they're open and not doing shit. And so we need the left center mid position is so fucking open. It's unbelievable. And we were talking about it during the game. I would not be opposed to even just in one game because we don't seem to have like if Odegaard is going to be a lower touch player and not going to be doing as much of the like incisive passing and having the creativity in the team, and he's going to kind of be just like arriving on shots and stuff like that. You need another controller and a high volume passer. And I know I get it. Zinchenko is already playing in midfield, but I would just love to see him just pushed right up there in that left center mid position, see how that goes, and then just have a more defensive option at the back. Because I just feel like we need a little bit of something different in that left center mid. But that's just me. That's just me. It's just me. But Ben gets a 4, you know. Oh, Andy says Arsenal versus West Ham in the next round. Thank you so much for that, Andy. That sucks. West Ham is a good team, but I mean, it could be worse. We could have gotten Newcastle. We could have gotten Man United. So, I'm not going to be too bad, but like, I'm not going to be too upset by it. But West Ham is a good team, and so they will go strong against us because obviously they want to. Declan Rice, are you watching? Are you watching? All that shit. So yeah, we just have to get by them, right? So the Rice Derby, exactly. So yeah, 4 for Ben. Awful day at the office, but needs a rest. I'm starving now. Sorry. Saliba, you didn't play, buddy. Gabrielle, really good. Had like one moment where I screamed at him and I was like, Gabrielle, what are you doing? But other than that, he really led the back line. I think at a certain point, like if your midfielders are not controlling the game and your attackers are just not getting out to wide areas to stop crosses and shit like that, you're just kind of on the ropes and you have to do what you can do. And I think Gabriel really thrives in those situations as well. I thought he did a really good job. Like with Ramsdale was probably one of our better players. Like him and Tommy were fine. Like I actually think most of our issues truly stemmed from the players up front and the players in midfield. Like in the second half, they just completely lost the plot. And so I'm going to give Gabrielle a 6. He's just, very solid, dependable player, especially when it comes to defense. Actually, you guys are giving him a little bit higher. I probably should have given him a little bit higher. I thought about it. I will. I'll give him it because now I'm seeing your guys' scores. I didn't want to go too high, but yeah, 6.5. For sure. He did really, really well in a situation where, I mean, it was just at a certain point, like before, like even after, like it really didn't stop. The bullshit really didn't, it never stopped. Even when Odegaard and Jesus came on, and then El Neni and Cedric came on, it didn't stop. Like we literally did not control, and like Brentford just kept coming waves on waves on waves on waves. And so the individual defending, although with like just a shot to the left or the right, still probably wouldn't have been enough, but they did as much as they could. So Gabrielle, got to be like a 6.5, maybe even a 7. I know it's probably harsh on him. Should probably go a little bit higher, but trust and believe, that is one of the highest scores. Trust and believe, Gabrielle's getting one of the higher scores. Charlie says, Mbomo beats 90% of the CVs in the league. Gabrielle kept him quiet. Jean says, I think in the circumstances, I feel feel 7 is fair, to be honest. Okay, fair enough. Let's do a 7. You guys listen to what I'm saying, and then like just know the rating is, I'm trying to not go overboard because the game was horrendous. But yeah, 7. That's as high as it's gonna get, y'all. Ansa says, what, 6.5? Monk says, I'll go 6. Midfield was invisible. They were on the ropes for so long because the midfield just decided, you know what? I'm not trying to do this shit no more. It was crazy. Maxwell says, Gabby a 7. So yeah, listen to what I'm saying, you guys, though. I'm saying Gabrielle was good. So I love Gabrielle. He was great. So yeah, 7 is probably about right. We got to the right score at a certain point. Tommy. You guys know I love me some Tomiyasu, okay? Tomiyasu, when he first came into the team, I thought he was God's gift, honey. I was like, look at this guy because he can actually defend, okay? We had been suffering with Bellerin for so effing long that, like, seeing somebody that could just stop somebody from scoring was, like, amazing. He's athletic. He can play multiple positions. He's good on the ball. Like, he just is, like, the perfect, like, squad option defender. Like, this is exactly what you need. He is, to me, the defender version of Trossard, where it's like the level is high enough, the versatility is good enough, the quality is there, and if he can just stay fit, I'm so happy with that signing. Steele at like 18 million. Happy to see him get back to his best. He looks really comfortable at center back. I think obviously we play with fullbacks that are more like center backs, so sometimes our center backs look a little odd out there on the wing, but he looks really, really comfortable at center back. I think he did a good job deputizing for Saliba, which is exactly what you need from a good squad option to allow Saliba to not get injured in games like this. He was unfortunate to get that knee injury last season. He would be so pivotal for us. He would have been so pivotal for us in the run-in. But Tomiyasu today, the blocks, the clearances, the just good defending, being like controlled and calm on the ball. Like, I just wish everybody else would have been like that as well. Like, I was like, put Tomiyasu in midfield. Like, I was so desperate to just get somebody in there that just like wasn't panicking. Like, it was insane at a certain point. So for me, Tomiyasu, I was joking earlier about Wissa being man of the match, but he's my man of the match. He was perfect today. He was just doing the business. I'm glad he's back. He's just like, he needs to start on against Bournemouth. Period. Point blank. Boo. He just is like, he just needs to start. Give Ben a rest. This is why you have players like Tomiyasu in your team. Like, man of the match. Man of the match. Let's heap some praise on Tommy because it was a really bad day today, but he really shone. He really shone. Sammy said, for me, Tommy was our best defender today. Oh, like by a long shot. Not like a long shot. Gabrielle was really good, but the other two on the wings, they were, man. Fan says Tommy was an 8. Charlie says Tommy higher than Gabrielle Jess. Yes. He was. I thought he was better. Just marginally though, like it's by a half point, like not a big deal. Ark says he was as good as Gabby. There was a little bit better. Carabao says guys in the Carabao Cup draw starts at 10:15. I don't know what's going on anymore actually. Dawood says, has Tomiyasu ever lost an aerial duel? He's immense. Monk says 7. He looked composed despite the fact that of work he had to do. Our defenders are like going to be so tired. They're going to be so tired, like because they had to do so much work in the second half. Jean says Tommy was by far a man of the match. Gets an 8 for sure. Tommy's a man of the match for us. Yeah, he was good. I thought he was good. Blaze says Tommy and Gabrielle was man of the match today. You could put both of them together, like, I thought they both did a really good job. Considering we had no midfield in the second half. No midfield. None. I mean, it was shocking. And I don't even know if it was like worth it because it's like, okay, well, I would love for these games to be confidence builders for guys that don't usually play, but it almost seems to like almost do the opposite where they play horrendously and have to get taken off. And then our starters still have to come out there and play minutes. Like, we're just not doing it right. Like, something is not happening. Tomiyasu is the exception to the rule where I do think he can have a little bit of confidence from this. And it kept us from having to play Saliba. But going forward, we still had to play Jesus and Odegaard. We still had to bring Zinchenko out there. And I'm not sure anybody but Reese really got a confidence boost from that game. They just looked dead. It's crazy. So yeah, love it. Love it, love it, love it for Tommy. I do. Next, Zinchenko did a little cameo role. I thought passing the ball forward to Jesus gave us some openings that we should probably score. Right as soon as like Zinchenko comes on, he passes the ball down the wing to like Jesus or Havertz, and Havertz passes it across. Reece Nelson should score. That being said, he had one really poor giveaway that could have resulted in a goal, and that's the risk that you take with Zinchenko. You get like amazing passes going forward sometimes, and some of the things that he does is like world class, and then he does one bad pass that could really just ruin the whole day. And so, but what I will say is he shouldn't have even had to come out there. That was a game that I really wanted to see Zinchenko and Jesus and Odegaard not have to play at all, and he still had to come out there and try to make shit happen for us, and that's unfortunate. So I'm just going to give him like a 6. Like he didn't really, he had that one bad pass, he had some good ones going forward, but like what can you do? I'm more disappointed that he had to even come out there, period. Like it just shouldn't have even had to come down to that. Innocent said they'll be playing long balls and skipping the midfield because our press wasn't good enough. Jabu says the only way it becomes a confidence builder is to have 60% of the first team in. Fair enough. Keenan says, why is everybody shitting on White in the comments? Dude plays like every game. I think it's just because it was like a poor game for him. Like I attribute most of his like poor play today to being like absolutely dead on his feet. And so I don't think Ben White, excuse me, guys, is a bad player. I don't think he, anything. I think he's actually a very good player. But players go through bad runs of form and are played into the ground. And this is what your squad is there for. It's time to let somebody else play. Shake says Zinni 5. Charlie says he had a meh. Aman says standard 5 for Zinni. Lucas says Zinchenko is not the same so far this season. He didn't. The thing is he didn't play for 3 months. I think people forget that he was out for a long period of time. So maybe he just needs a run of games. I think his first game back fully was against Manchester United, and so it was Manchester United, Everton, PSV, Spurs, and then now like a little bit of this game. So I think it does take you a little while to get back up to speed sometimes. And so I'm willing to give Zinchenko some more because he didn't have a preseason. He wasn't even involved in preseason at all. So I think you need to take that into consideration. Ansa says 5. Boy says Zinchenko was good when he came on. He still only gets a 6. Thankfully, he kicked our attack into gear for 1 or 2 possessions, which was needed to like calm down Brentford. Yeah, I agree. Dat says White is like a pawn on a chessboard. He doesn't move forward unless you tell him to. And Aman says, I think Zinni has been better defensively this season. So it was a 6. Like, he wasn't on there very long. My only regret is that he had to come on at all. Kivior, I thought he really struggled in the first half. I thought he was okay defensively, but Brentford really weren't an attacking force at all in the first half. I thought what I was really looking for Kivior was those big switches of play, passes in between the lines. A lot of what we saw from Kivior, from him like in Italy was he was good at playing with the ball at his feet. And I thought he was a little slow on the ball. He looked rusty. He looked unsure of himself. And that maybe I'm playing left back and I haven't played a lot for Arsenal. I feel like I'm under pressure. But I just wanted to see, a player that hadn't gotten a lot of playing time really step up and like show that he deserves more playing time. And I'm not sure I've seen that from Kivior. I think I saw a performance that would make Arteta cling a little bit more to Zinchenko and Tommy. And not, I would be surprised if we saw Kivior anytime soon, if I'm honest. Like he just was kind of struggling in the first half. Defensively, at the second half, when we were a little bit more under it, he did okay. And then he had that really good goal line clearance. So that was good. But for Arsenal, being a team that has the majority of the possession almost all the time, we need our defenders to be able to play from the back and be confident and comfortable on the ball. And he didn't really necessarily show that. So for me, I'm going to give Kiwi a 5. I thought, it just wasn't a strong enough performance to really, I think, change maybe Arteta's view of him and give him more playing time. That's my feeling on the Kivior performance. That's what I saw. Jason says, I really like Kivior tonight. The block off the line exemplified that he did what he needed to do. Fair enough. Shake says Kivior is a 6. Ruben says Kivior was 6 average. Jacob says Kivior was a solid 6. Iman says, I thought Kivior had a decent game, 6.5 for him. Charlie says Kivior 5. He should consider becoming an auxiliary DM. CB, he's solid, but anything on the wings, he can't play there. I thought Kiwi was fast. Like they told us when preseason was going, he was one of the fast ones in the team. I find him to be a little slow. Lucas says Kivior is quiet, shy guy. He needs some games to gain some confidence. I agree. The thing is I think in this team, in this environment, what ends up happening is you have one chance to really show, and then you go back on the bench on the shelf for a long time. And so I'm not sure that he did enough to give Arteta a selection headache at all. But he does need more game time because, like, maybe the lack of game time is the reason why we've seen a Kivior that doesn't look as confident. Like, I thought when he first came into the team, he was a little bit more confident. And this is what I tend to see with Arsenal players that come in that aren't like immediate starters. They come in and they look good. Then they go back on the bench for a while. And then the next couple of times that you see them, they really struggle. I thought Tomiyasu was kind of like that. Vieira was definitely like that. I'm seeing a little bit of that from Kiwi. And, Arteta needs to find a way to get him more involved or else he won't be useful. Richard says Kiwior, just a decent squad player, 5. RT says we need to have context with our starting 11 playing together for the first time. Fair enough. So, yeah, Kiwior, 5. No biggie. Still love him. Still think he needs time to adapt and needs some playing time to get his rhythm going and get some confidence. Jorginho, I think Jorginho played well. The thing is that Jorginho, I think it's abundantly clear at this stage that we've bought a CDM that needs to be played with another DM. He needs a buffer around him so that we can really take advantage of what he does the best, which is finding those little seams. Like, I thought early on in the first half, like, he really was putting in some decent passes into the attack, and they weren't finishing their dinner. They were struggling, like, to just put the ball in the back of the net, but he found some good passes. Now that starts to go away. The more and more that the game gets stretched, Jorginho fades away from the game. So he needs support. And so having a midfield of ESR, Havertz, and Jorginho was always going to get found out at a certain point. They were always going to figure out a way to stretch that midfield and win the second balls, win the first balls, and absolutely just like nullify that midfield. So I thought Jorginho was actually pretty good today. And just knowing the player that he is, he couldn't have done much more. He was winning a lot of headers. He was intercepting the ball. He was defending quite well, but he just faded away. Like, his influence faded away on the ball because we couldn't win a fucking ball. We couldn't win a header. We couldn't win anything. And so I'm going to give him, I actually thought he was pretty good. I think I'm going to give him I thought he was one of the better performers like Gabriel and Tomiyasu. I'm going to give him a 7. Beyond just that one little bobble that he had in the first half, he was one of our better performers, and he needed to have a decent game. So, yeah, I thought he was fine, to be honest. Let's see. Matthew says Jorginho won 8 of his 9 ground duels and 2 key passes. That's what I saw. I saw a player that was winning his duels and, put in some decent passes to the attackers. Like, at a certain point, like, it becomes on the manager how they're using the player. Not like, it's not Jorginho's fault that he doesn't have legs. It's not Jorginho's fault that, he's not quick. That's not on him. We bought a player where we knew what his limitations are, and it's up to the manager to put him in a position or put people around him that limit the exploitation of his flaws. And I think we're continuously put him in positions where he's going to get exposed, and then we get upset with him for being exposed. Now, that's not what happened against Spurs, but what happened today was just eventually Brentford just said, you know what, we're just going to beat ESR and Havertz to every single ball. And so we couldn't control the midfield anymore, and it just became what it is. But to me, that's not a Jorginho problem. That's a how we set up the midfield problem. I actually think he was actually good today and led the team pretty well. some of the selections and some of the like. I just think maybe Elneny should have came in a little bit sooner. I think ESR probably only had about 45 minutes in him, so you know Elneny could have came in a lot sooner. And Elneny's not a great player, but what he can do is kind of like sit next to a DM, win his duels, and pass to keep possession. And I thought that's all we kind of needed in that second half to slow things down. Keenan says should have played Jorginho and Elneny in a pivot. Monk said a 6 for me. Do you reckon he can work on the left half space next to Rice as a 6? No, I think he needs to be in like just a pivot. Like he can play in a pivot where one like they kind of balance each other out. Like he goes forward, comes back, the other one goes forward, and comes back. But I would love to see that as an option for Arsenal at some stage. Like, I think we have to get to a point where our three DMs can kind of play with each other and without each other. And it would be nice to see Jorginho with Rice or Jorginho with Partey. And because we also have a lot of tens, we have quite a few players that can play in the 10 position. That's actually a better fit for them. Emil Smith Rowe and Vieira are good examples of players that are probably more suited to playing in the pocket in front of two DMs. And so instead of tasking them with being eights, which don't necessarily suit their best attributes, it would be nice to see Jorginho, Partey, and Vieira in a game, or Rice and Jorginho and ESR in a game. But we always play with a single pivot with these two tens. And if you don't like, literally the only number 6 that I've seen in our team be able to carry two lightweight number 10s is Rice. Even Partey struggles a little bit. So it'd be nice. I mean, it feels obvious, doesn't it, to play Jorginho in a double pivot? Like we didn't really have the option today, but it feels obvious to play him in that way. I don't know why we don't do it. You know, you have to set players up for success. Like, and I think sometimes it's like, this is the way we want to play. So even though I know this player is going to get absolutely destroyed playing this way, I'm going to play him like that anyway. I think that's a bad way to do stuff. Blaze says, I don't think Jorginho was bad today, like people think in the chat. I would give him a 7. I didn't see a bad game from Jorginho at all. I thought it was pretty good. He was one of our better performers today. Keenan says, Vieira, Havertz, ESR can all play 10 well, the 10 well. Exactly. Like we've bought there's 3 10s in the team. We have one player that's kind of a number 10, but can also play 8 in Odegaard. You know, the way that our midfield options are set up, we'd probably be better off in a double pivot, especially in certain games and game states. But the desperation to play with the single 6 is hurting us a little bit. You know, but I do think Arteta will kind of use Partey and Rice together at some stage, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to use Jorginho because he really can find those little passes. Like he's really good at it, but we can't utilize it if the game is stretched. So yeah, it's one of those, right? Tawana says, I need a 6, 2 6s, and an 8. Our midfield needs that to function. Yeah, I would love to see something like that. So let's move on. I think Jorginho was fine today. Nowhere near one of our worst performers or anything like that. You didn't play. You played a little bit. You were okay. We're not going to waste that much time on Odegaard. I just wanted him to sit and let his legs rest. So I'm just going to give him a little 5. Doesn't matter. Because I didn't see, like, he did kind of keep possession, and you can just see he's so intelligent. Like, he doesn't panic on the ball and just finds the pass. But we don't need to really go into the Odegaard thing. Like, he was largely fine and, didn't really need to came on and played very little minutes. You didn't play. Havertz, I actually thought he was fine in the first half, but it really annoyed me that he didn't put his foot through that one pass that he got in the box. It frustrates me that our players just don't put their foot through the ball. Like they're in the box and they want to either dribble or take an additional touch. But when they're outside the box, not necessarily Havertz, but I've seen this quite a bit with like Odegaard and Eddie, where they're outside the box and they're blocked, but they just still try to hit it with all of their power. Why not do that inside the box when you're a couple feet out? Like just put your foot through it. And that's all I really wanted to see from Havertz was put his fucking foot through the ball. Like he was playing okay. He had some decent movement. I was a little bit frustrated that he had another one of those moments where he could have easily turned, but did a little wall pass instead of like taking the ball forward. And it was just another Havertz game where he probably could have had an assist. He wasn't terrible in the first half, but it's just abundantly clear that the guy has like no confidence and it's not getting any better. He's playing loads of minutes, and no matter what is going on, he still just cannot impose himself on a match. And it's becoming more and more frustrating. And in the second half, he was nowhere to be found. He fouled so many times. Him and Eddie, these fouls that they don't need to be doing, it just needs to fucking stop. Like, stop fouling when you don't need to do it. It's really, really, really annoying. But yeah, I thought he was largely ineffective in the first half. I think he was underwhelming in the first half. Like, he was poor in the second half. He was underwhelming in the first half. And the debate will continuously rage on about why did we buy him when there's so many other left-sided center mids that you could have bought. Literally, there was so many on the market. You just did not have to do this. What is the plan? How much longer before he's just completely dropped? Because that position is, I think, really keeping us from like pushing on. Xhaka needed an upgrade, but he played it in a way where we were one of the best midfields in the league. Right now, our midfield is not producing at any sort of like level at all, and I think it largely has to do with that position is not quite clicking yet. And so you already have Rice who's trying to like learn the position, get used to it, but you have a player that's just kind of like ill-suited for the position that's in front of him. Then you have people like 4 or 5 guys on Odegaard that are like, you know what, I can just leave that guy open over there. He's not going to do anything. I'm just going to stay on the guy that really makes things tick. And we're struggling. We are struggling. And a lot of it has to do with that position and the fact that we recruited somebody there it's not really clicking. And so that position is open, but there's not really anybody that's like a naturally like, that's it. I think each player leaves something to be desired. ESR leaves a little bit to be desired because he's more of an off the ball guy and like he can progress it, but I don't think he's like a high volume passer. He's not going to control tempo. Like, he's not going to get next to the DM and be like in a double pivot. Vieira's largely the same. Like, he wants to be in and around the box. He can fade in and out of games. And then you have Havertz that just is not a left center mid at this stage. So we have a gaping hole on our left side, and this is just something that we did not have to do, but we did it anyway. And he just was really poor today. I have to give him a 4. He was one of our worst performers. And where I can be lenient with Reese and Emile Smith-Rowe and the academy kid, I cannot be lenient with somebody that costs that much, that has that much experience, and needs to at some point kick on. I get that the comments are terrible, like the comments are terrible, and people are going in on you and stuff, but you need to do it. You need to suck it up. Lucas says, fuck West Ham away. We're always away. Like, we're always away. We never get home draws. We're always away in this competition. So it's going to be really difficult to get through to the next round, especially if we play any sort of rotational lineup. So yeah. But it's definitely a 4 for me. He was really bad. Stefan says he was so bad. It's not just the GA that's worrying me. It's the inability to influence games at a very uninspiring footballer. And Manchester United always play at home and we always play away. So it's always largely set up for Man United to go through quite easily. And they probably got an easier draw. So yeah. Keenan says 6. He wasn't that bad. I thought he was pretty poor. Social Join says, you lot still believe Havertz is the guy. Forget about him. It's just an L, just a bad buy. It's okay. Just accept it. Nandish says a 4 is extremely harsh. You would have given Xhaka a 4 if he gave the same performance. A lot of unconscious bias, in my opinion. Xhaka wouldn't have given a performance like that. Xhaka wouldn't have given a performance like that. That's the thing. Is like, people keep doing these things where they're trying to say like, oh, well, you wouldn't have really expected a center midfielder to score a goal, right? So like, why do you expect Havertz to score a goal? Or he wasn't really that bad. Like, if Xhaka had put in a performance like that, you wouldn't have been. I'm sorry, like, the mind tricks and the like reverse psychology doesn't work on me. It's not unconscious bias. If he played okay, like, I thought he was nowhere near the worst player against Spurs. And people were talking about him like he was. And I said, I don't think he was that bad. Today, I watched a player that faded very badly in the second half and was okay in the first half, but did not impose himself on the game. So he was poor. An average first half and a really poor second half is a poor game for a player that costs that amount, that we've seen a lot of minutes of him. Like, it's not like he hasn't been in the team. So for me, like, the reverse psychology of, you wouldn't have given Xhaka that score, Xhaka wouldn't have put in that performance. And the reverse psychology about like what a midfielder is, if somebody is arriving in the box, playing in and around the box, they're the goal for them is to get goals and assists. And he was robbed of one of those. I will say that. But all in all, like somebody else said, it was a very uninspiring performance by a player that at some point needs to impose himself, because these excuses that people are giving are going to wear thin at some point. It doesn't work on me. It doesn't. And also my favorite one is, you just don't understand the game if you don't respect what Kai Havertz is doing. That kind of stuff doesn't work on me. Like, I know what I'm watching. I'm watching like a very uninspiring footballer underperform, and people are trying to make me see things that I don't see. But saying that Xhaka wouldn't have given that performance, like, or if you'd given it, I wouldn't have given him a 4. Xhaka wouldn't have put in that performance, and that's the point. That's the point. So there you go. He was poor. ESR started off really well, faded off into the second half like everybody else, but you expect him to, because he hasn't played any football at all, really, except for in the under 21s. He played really hard in that first half. You could see he really wanted it, and it really frustrated me that he made several really, really good runs in behind, and like we weren't finding him. I think Jorginho found him maybe like once or twice, but he kept making that run, and nobody was finding him. And so that frustrated me, but he faded towards in the second half, which you can understand because he hasn't played. Unlike other people, he has not played. So I thought he should have scored a goal, but he was lively. I don't think he had enough of an impact to play Saturday. I don't know. You have to pick somebody. You pick Havertz, you pick ESR, you pick Vieira. I don't know. Vieira may be injured. So, who do you choose? But I think we're just largely in a place with that left center mid where there's nobody that really stands out. Everybody lacks a little bit of something. And, but ESR, he can build from this. He can build from this if he gets more playing time. And I want him to play against West Ham, because at the very least, I think he's deserved another chance. But we need to fill some of those other positions with starters. So, yeah, ESR was fine. I give him a 6.5. Nothing like, I'm basing this mostly on the fact that like he hasn't played any minutes whatsoever. And I saw quite a bit in that first half to be excited about, but I thought he was fine, but people have to remember that he hasn't played at all, so he didn't really have a preseason, not that much of a preseason. He's played no minutes except for like a couple of little minutes here and there in the Premier League, and he didn't play at all last season. So he has much better of, like, I think he has a bigger excuse than other people to have faded in that second half. Ansa says 4 for Havertz and 6.5 for ESR. Yes. Again, one player is, the thing is like, if you just want to judge it based on like, okay, well, we don't care about any of the context whatsoever surrounding the players, fair enough. Then both of them will probably get a 5. But the context surrounding the players, you cannot judge ESR the same as Havertz. You can't. You cannot. Like, you cannot whatsoever. So if you guys want to stick the boot into ESR for fading in the second half when he hasn't played any minutes and probably doesn't have the fitness levels, go ahead. Have fun. I'm not doing it. ESR had a really good first half, hasn't played any minutes, and was much more effective than Havertz was at all in that first half. So, yeah, no, sorry. For me, ESR gets a better score than Havertz, and it's clear. Like, people that are defending Havertz with their life in a couple of months will come back and they'll come back. They always do, and say things like, yeah, I wanted to give him time, but it's just not working. Or, you were right. I was just doing this. I was just like, it always comes back out. Like, you're not going to make me give ESR a bad score because you're mad that I gave Havertz a low score that he deserved. Like, he was worse than ESR. Shake says ESR 6. Keenan says ESR played well, at least a 6.5. If you actually watch the game, ESR was really good in that first half. And if he faded in the second half, it makes sense why. He has not played. He has not played. He has not played. Boy says, you're going to come back, Jess. You're going to have to apologize for slandering Havertz. I saw it with Fabio Vieira. I don't see it with Havertz yet. And I don't think any of you guys see it either. I think you guys are just hoping. There's no flashes, like, period, boo. Charlie says Arteta is refusing to play him in his under 21 position, left center mid. England won that tournament off of him and Curtis Jones. Ben says ESR should come in as a sub next game. In my opinion, not fitness levels, but as the season continues, he'll get it. Yeah. Tawana says ESR needs some porridge. He's weak and needs some sparks. RT says ESR4 no excuse was missing in the second half. I hope you gave Havertz the same score then. It's funny that people want to give ESR it's all biased because everybody that's mentioning ESR getting a low score was also somebody that was mad about me giving Havertz a low score. So it's all biased and agenda based. But for me, somebody that hasn't really played and probably doesn't have the fitness levels to go the full 90 is going to drop off. What was Havertz's excuse? He's played almost every single game this season. What is his excuse? I don't understand what his excuse is. So there you go. You didn't play, unfortunately. I love you. Nelson, really good player. I think really, excuse me, really, what's the word? I don't want to say dependable, but like an honest player. He got forward, got back, defended well, stopped a really good counter, never shirked the defensive duties, pressed well, kept the ball, scored the goal, looked dangerous. He did what he needed to do, and he was the spark. He was one of the only players, attack wise, that I thought looked like they wanted to give Arteta something to think about. And I think ESR kind of tried initially and then faded, but like Reece Nelson, there's nothing I can say bad because he did what he needed to do, and he had the energy of a player that realized that we were in a Carabao Cup game and like we kind of need to get to the next round, where some other people were just kind of like on another fucking planet. So for me, like, I got to give Reece Nelson a 7. From the attack, he was the best player. He scored the goal, and he's so reliable in terms of like you usually get a decent performance, like you get at least a 6 or a 7 out of him. Um, maybe like 7s almost every single time that he comes onto the pitch, whether he starts or he's a rotational option, he does the business. He gets a 7 for me. Like, unless you guys want me to give him a 4 because he faded in the second half and Havertz got a low score, then Reece Nelson was one of the better players on today. Ansu says Nelson 7.5. I think he's better on the right though. Michael says Nelson, where's the explosive dribbles? He didn't need to have explosive dribbles today, though. Like, all we needed to do was finish our dinner. Like, we could have been 3-0 up without having to beat them 1v1 on the wings. Like, we were cutting through them in the center. They were very weak, and the only reason why they were in the game was because we did not finish our dinner. So, yeah. But I get, like, people would just want their wingers to go 1v1, but it wasn't even necessary. RD says, we have different opinions. Don't see a problem. The chat is to share opinions. Peace. I'm just saying, like, you guys give your opinions, I give my opinion. I do think it's pretty clear to me that if you give Havertz a bad score, then some people want you to give everybody else a bad score. But Havertz, to me, just the context around the signing and the fact that I feel like people are really forcing us to try to see things that we're not seeing and telling us we don't understand football if we don't see it, or we don't understand how a attacking midfielder is supposed to work. All of that has really soured everything I have in terms of like having the conversations around Havertz because it's disingenuous. So he was poor today. If he wasn't, I would say it. Like, period. Ruben says 6, missed a sitter. I agree. Like, he should have probably made that last chance, right? Blaze says Nelson a 7. Yeah, so probably about a 7. And he had energy. He did have energy, so good for him. I don't think anybody else on here really played. Oh, you did. Um, how do I explain? How do I explain? Um, decent build up and like hold up play in the first half. Shocking in front of goal. a lot of needless and silly fouls. That is starting to really rub me the wrong way because he's 100% getting a red card soon. He just doesn't seem to have any sort of ability to pull back. He has to have had at least 4 fouls today. Him and Havertz alone fouled at least 10 times. Like, it was frustrating to watch them continuously foul. But he although he had some decent link up, the thing is like he either has the link up and no finishing or he has none of it. And so we need a number 9 in January. We're not getting clinical finishing. Our attackers look blunt. Um, it's just what are you doing, man? Like the cut in that he cut in on his right and then hit it from outside the box. You don't have that in your locker. I've never seen you score a goal like that. You always score from right inside the 6 yard. Like that is where you score. So why are you shooting from outside the box? Why are you shooting from outside the box? Why are you trying to dribble 3 or 4 men in the box? Like what are you doing? You don't have those types of skills. Just you're a one touch poacher merchant. Like that is your vibe. So like get on the end of cutbacks. Like even the one for Reese Nelson, that was a poor pass that like luckily the defender messed up and Reese Nelson put away. Like just the simple things he's not getting right at this stage. And so he's a very frustrating player to watch because I think because all of us know he's not at the level of Arsenal, the more we watch him play and the more minutes he gets, it's frustrating. It's hard to watch, Jesus on the wing and Eddie still staying in the center. No, man. No, man. It's no, no. Let me give him like he technically got an assist, y'all. Like that's it. Because I know people are gonna say, but he got an assist. We watched the game. Like 5.5. I don't know. Maybe even a 5. Like he was yeah. No, man. Um, I'm tired. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Like we need a 9. Like for real. Tawana says Eddie wasn't in the game. Charlie says we are not getting top 2 with Nketiah and Jesus as our front man. Wake Up Mind says Radar Arteta. Keenan says, remember when all the fans defended Eddie getting Thierry's number? There's a reason why old school ballers like me were pissed. And, you know, I just remember the conversations that we had about Eddie and Nketiah getting that new contract and, people really backing it and saying, you don't see another backup striker of his quality. Like, we're lucky to have him. Like, you don't see that. Football is fucking simple, you guys. Like, you can see a good player and you can see a not so good player. And like really, going into the season, Eddie was somebody that needed to be moved on. He should have never gotten a new deal, on 100,000 pounds per week, no less. But he should have been gone this summer, and we should have gotten a number 9 or another attacker because now we're desperate. And you can tell that the club wants to bring in a number 9, but we need to move him on. And like, what if moving him on is difficult? Like, what if he doesn't want to go to Brentford? We tried to move him on to Crystal Palace once, but they didn't want to pay him what he felt like he was worth, so he didn't go. And so I am a little bit like, we should have sold him in the summer. We should have said, you know what? We need to upgrade. Going into this season with Eddie and Jesus for me is just like a little bit like, and it's looking like that. We were playing really well last season, so we could carry a little bit of um, his quirks, but now it's becoming so obvious that like a title winning team or a team that's trying to win things is not going to have those as just your striker options. And I also will say like Jesus, Jesus is a player that I really want at Arsenal. I always wanted him at Arsenal. I think he's really, really good, and he was going to always take it to the next level. But Arsenal, I think getting close to the title made the it made the process go a little bit faster. And so a player like Jesus is no longer enough for Arsenal. Like we need more. And so it's painfully obvious to see he's not it. But I do look at some people that were like really trying to gaslight us into thinking that this was one, a good idea, and two, we didn't get football if we didn't think that Eddie was a good striker, showing me all these statistics and all this shit. I don't need to see the statistics. My eye is telling me that I'm watching somebody that needs to be playing at a mid-table level, and he started 5 out of the 6 Premier League games for Arsenal at center forward, and that's not good enough. So it's just it is what it is. Like Social Joins is saying, Eddie is an average striker. He isn't good enough. He's just a workhorse player. Um, Arsenal Adventure says Eddie is a two. Selin Jan, he is getting chances at our club like Arsenal and not doing anything. Charlie says, Jess said, when have you ever shot that shot? It's true. Like he's never made a goal like that. Like, so why are you shooting? Like, I don't get it. Nelson says, after the way Napoli pissed off Osimhen January signing, please sell Nketiah. It's time. Tawana says, I'm telling you, Havertz is going to miss games soon when these yellows pile up, same as Eddie. They need to stop all that damn fouling. Nito says, this was Eddie's game to prove his 14 good plays, no finish. Exactly. There was a lot of good link-up play and some good passes here and there between like Jorginho and Eddie, and like that was there. But I need you to finish, man. Like I need you to put the ball in the back of the net. I need you to make something out of nothing. And right now we don't have that. Everything we have is system based, but sometimes you need a little bit of individual brilliance, and that's something that a number 9 can give you. Charlie says, laugh out loud, Jess. I'm sorry, you guys, but it's just crazy. Unknown C says, just leave Arteta's Godstone alone, or Godson alone. Tawana says, Eddie needs to go on loan. Carabao says, we need a striker. Keenan says, 5.5 sounds good. Like for me, like probably about like a 5.5 for Eddie is good enough. You know, I think I'm trying not to like kill him too much, but like there was some good, but damn, there was some bad in there. So, yeah, man, it is what it is. Let's try, Jesus, like what he came out there. And this is the thing is like when our like starting 11, I think has to come out in these Carabao Cup games and try to shore things up. They never really look like themselves. Like Jesus was just kind of like out there. Odegaard was just kind of out there. Like, what can you say? They probably wanted a little bit of a rest, but they couldn't sit because the team was shit. So, a 5 for Jesus. There's not really much else to say about that. And the one thing I want to say about Sago Jr., who was the academy player that played today, um, I thought he had a decent first half. Didn't do much, but the second half he faded. The rest of the team faded. You know, everybody was terrible in that second half. And oh fuck, Cedric. I forgot Cedric came on in El Neni. I'll talk about those two together. But I can't kill the kid. You know, there are people in the comment section saying he's not good enough. He's not good enough. It's like he's fucking academy player. Like, what do you expect? Like he's playing with a really rotated Arsenal side that completely dropped off of a cliff in the second half. He needed to come off at the beginning of the second half, but Arteta wanted to really long it out because he didn't want to have to use Jesus and stuff. But we were so poor that like he had to do it. So fair enough. Like I thought he was fine in the first half, but just kind of like fell away. So that is what it is. In terms of like Social Joins asking about Cozier Dewberry, I don't know why we didn't just play the obvious one of Cozier Dewberry. It's Cozier Dewberry, Rule Walters, Lino Sousa, Ethan Noweri, and Miles Lewis Skelly. That's it. Like the other players are probably decent, but like we know who the real big boys are in that the academy teams and the under 21. So why it wasn't Cozier Dewberry just stinks of Arteta again. Like, oh, everybody wants Cozier Dewberry, but I'm gonna go for Sago Jr. and be fucking hipster about it. Just go with the guy, you know, just go with the guy. It's crazy, but he was fine. So I'm not gonna kick him. You know what I'm saying? So I would, he did not need to be the one to make the difference. El Neni and fucking Cedric. I thought they were whatever they were. I thought El Neni did his little job to try to like secure things up. I think he was all right. And Cedric was running around, but ultimately the two of them are not good enough for Arsenal Football Club, and they like Rob Holding need to be snipped. They need to be moved on, and those squad spots need to go to the likes of Patino and the likes of like Lino Sousa and Rule Walters. Like, it's amazing to me how Arteta has not brought in any academy players whatsoever into the first team, and he's been here for almost 4 seasons. So at this stage, like, I don't want to see Cedric. I know that we're paying him, so like I get why we are, but at this stage, like, instead of filling the squad with these bums, like, just let them go off into the pasture. We're not going to get anything for either one of those. Like they're just going to go off and be free transfers, whatever. But I want those last little squad spots to be filled up with academy players because our academy is damn good. And, it's about time we see some of them blooded in. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like they don't have to be the first one off the bench. I'm not saying I want Rule Walters to be Ben White's backup, but could he be like the third option? Could he take Cedric's spot? Hell yeah, he could. Bring me Nweri, bring me Patino, bring me these players. Like, it's so much more beneficial for Arsenal to have an academy kid filling those positions and gaining experience and potentially even upping their value than having old ass dudes on high ass wages taking up space, breathing the Arsenal air. So, they did all right. They did their job. It's time for them to go. It's time for them to go. Saudi, Turkey, China, I don't care. Go. Go, 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 go. But I want to see some of these kids come through next season for sure. Let's see. Social Join says Arteta's talent ID needs serious, serious questioning. I think he does okay in some ways, but the one thing that surprises me about Arteta is I think he can identify a defender, and I think he can identify a defender sometimes. I know Cedric was kind of like we were desperate to bring people in. We brought in Mari and Cedric, but once we got more money, we started, I think, getting it right. Like Ben White, Tommy, Timber. Those were fine. Like those are good defensive signings. What surprises me about Arteta the most is that he can't identify a good midfielder, just a plain ass midfielder. Like I don't actually have a problem with Vieira because I think he's a good like foil for Odegaard. It's fine. I don't have a problem with having Thomas Partey and Rice. What I have a problem with is not having a single 8 in the team and why we can't identify one and why there's so many in the league that we can look at and bring in. If you want Premier League proven, we had it. Like we could have went for so many different players in that position. And we just, for somebody who's a midfielder, how can you not identify a baller for midfield? How? 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 It's insane, But yeah, I think Arteta does a decent job with certain positions, and then other positions, it's like, all right, now, why can't you get a midfielder in? It's crazy. Ruben John says, regarding the strikers, has any striker thrived under Arteta? Abba became washed. Laka, I mean, Eddie may should we be questioning coaches? I think it's early days because Arteta's only bought one. He's only bought one striker. So it'd be difficult to say Aubameyang at that stage didn't really fit what we were trying to do. And so I figure that's more about though maybe him not fitting the system than anything else, and then him and Arteta not getting along. Like that relationship was broken. It was what it was. And then Lacazette was fucking finished, you guys. Like Lacazette was not doing shit under anybody, like period, point blank. But he bought Jesus, and Jesus has pretty much performed the same way that he performed at City. Like he misses big chances, but he's a great footballer. So if he buys Tony and Tony falls off of a cliff, then let's have a conversation. But he's only bought one. Do you see what I'm saying? But when it comes to I want to see in the midfield, I just cannot believe we can identify a midfielder. That is wild to me. Why we have 4 number 10s and 3 DMs, but not 4 DMs actually, but not a single just plain ass midfielder. Plain ass, just a midfielder. It could be a more attacking sided, it could be like a Paquetá, he's more attack minded, but he's a midfielder. Okay, he can operate in midfield. Do you see what I'm saying? Nunez was right there. Right there. Shit. How can you not identify one? Do you see what I'm saying? So I don't want to say he can't coach, a striker, but the midfield, we got Edu and Arteta as our fucking guys running shit. Y'all can't identify a midfielder? Let me stop. Let me get out of here, y'all. But yeah, Arteta, what can I say? I looked at the lineup and thought this is more than good enough to beat Brentford quite easily. And it was. they couldn't finish their dinner, and then they became stupid in the second half, and then we were on the ropes. And I thought Arteta took a little bit too long to make changes, and we could have very much so went 1-0 down, or we could have easily been level before we got anybody in, because remember, Wissa hit the post. So, I thought it was poor from everybody. I don't know. It was just stinky. And after the Spurs match, like, it just throws a whole bunch of more mystery and question around what's going to happen at Bournemouth. Like, is this a problem, or is it just like, we were tired after the spread? Like, and why are we tired already? Like, I know that 3 games a week is kind of a lot, but like, why are we like dead on our feet already? Like, what is that? Maybe we were just ran into the ground last season. I don't know. But Arteta, for me, like, I'm just gonna give him like a 6.5. Like, you got the result, but straight up, like, that was smelly. And if Brentford could do anything, we would have been um we would have been behind in that fucking game. It was rough. And I really wanted to see us graduate from barely holding on. I really wanted to see us graduate from barely holding on, with a rotated lineup against Premier League opposition in these cups. I just want to see us do a little bit more. Maybe I'm a little bit harsh on us. Maybe everybody else kind of struggled a little bit, and I just needed to watch everybody else's game. But I just think, as a general rule, you should be able to rotate, and players should be able to rise to the occasion and score a couple of goals when the other team is absolute shit, and make it easy for you instead of making it like really, really hard. And these games are really way too difficult. They're way too emotionally draining and physically draining, I think, for the side, like, when they don't have to be. And so, yeah, it's just one of those. Um, Artie says, but players did their job with heavily rotated squad, didn't expect too much. The problem is that we do that every single time, and then the next time we'll, like, I just don't think it should always be this difficult. At some point we should be able to just do it. And I know Man City goes out today, and so they're not a good example. But usually when they play against like a Brentford, like a really crap Brentford at that, no Tony, no confidence, nothing, they beat them 2-3-0 and just go about their business with a rotated squad. So that's kind of where I'm at, with it. So that's just me. But maybe, I'm being too harsh, and that's fine. Um, you know, um, we'll see the next round. But we have Bournemouth next, and like I told you guys, for Bournemouth, there's not going to be any watch along, but there will be live player ratings after the match. And then Laura Kirk Francis is going to be joining me for the post match podcast, as well as a rewatch. The only reason why we didn't do the rewatch for Spurs was because Arsenal took a long time to get the full match loaded on the website, and I only had James for a little bit of time, and so we couldn't do it. But we will do it for Bournemouth for you guys on Patreon. So make sure you guys check that out if you can. If you want to do Patreon, you can. If you can't, there's no worries. You will get the live player ratings after the match. But I super enjoyed this. We're gonna start gearing up for Bournemouth starting tomorrow. But I absolutely love hanging out with you guys on game day. I'm so glad you guys, got me to do the watch alongs. I think they're so, even though I hate it, I love it because you guys are absolutely amazing. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel, and get in the comments after and let me know what you guys thought about the player ratings, what you thought about the game, what you thought about the players, all that kind of stuff. And we will talk tomorrow. All right. I'm going to go get my car, because they keep calling. But love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, y'all.